This is Tuesday, March 23rd. This is World History. Well, last week we learned that Francis Ferdinand, heir to the throne of the Austria-Hungarian Empire, was in Bosnia when an assassin killed both him and his wife. Now, this is the official beginning of World War I. Franz Joseph, the leader of Austria-Hungary, is going to put great demands on Serbia. Those were the people who had murdered the crown prince. He knew that Serbia could not commit to the conditions he laid down, and he ordered his army to attack Serbia and bring the guilty parties to justice. Now, Serbia had made a deal with Russia, and Tsar Nicholas II will declare war on Russia. This is Tsar Nicholas II in this picture. The Germans will agree to attack the Russians as part of its commitments to Austria. The French will agree to help out the Russians as part of their commitments, and the war that everybody had feared, what we now call the Great War, had begun. So, this here is where the crown prince had been killed. Now this area down in here is what we would probably call Serbia. Now, Austria is going to send its troops down here. Russia is going to send its troops across. At this point, Germany will send troops across here. The French will begin to fortify locations against the British and the Austrians, and the war is on. This is a recap of the first 6 months of the war. Now, Italy did not honor its commitments to the Triple Alliance. Italy had hoped that a piece of the Austria-Hungarian Empire along the Adriatic Sea would fall to Italy. And so Italy chose not to honor Austria-Hungary and Germany. Great Britain is going to balk at joining the Triple Entente. The British Prime Minister, David Lloyd George, did not see anything in the war that really affected the British. The Austria-Hungarian and the German leaders will meet. The Austria-Hungarians would attack Russia. The Germans would attack France. Now, since Italy had balked at joining the Triple Alliance, we're now going to call the Germans and the Austria-Hungarians the Central Powers. The Germans felt that a quick victory over the French, as they had done in the Franco-Prussian War, would allow the Austria-Hungarians to attack the Russians. Now, during the Franco-Prussian War, the Germans had come across the Rhine River. This time, they decided to go through neutral Belgium. The idea was that if they go through neutral Belgium, they might be able to attack Paris. Now, when Germany goes through neutral Belgium, France is going to call for assistance from Great Britain. Great Britain believes that it is an injustice, that the Belgians had been hurt, and they now join the Russians, Serbs, and French. Now, neither side is able to defeat the other people, and soon we are digging trenches and hoping that we can stop both sides. Here is a short video about this. By the end of 1914, the war was at a stalemate. Now, Germany felt that if it could achieve a naval victory over the British, then Germany could dictate to the British and French and into the war. The German surface navy is going to attack a part of the British surface navy off the coast of Denmark. Now, the Germans called this the Jutland Sea. The British called this the North Sea. Now, both sides are going to inflict heavy damage. But in the end, the Germans will have to retreat, and they will never come out to fight again. Here's a short video on the Battle of the Jutland Sea. Here is a map, and here is the Battle of Jutland Sea right over here. Now, this area along in here, where the X is in France, that's where most of the fighting is going to take place in World War I. The war is going to develop new weapons. Now, one of the weapons the Germans had perfected was the submarine. The submarine was able to roam off the coast of the British Isles. The submarine could shoot underwater torpedoes, and it would sink British and French merchant ships. Really, there was no defense to a German submarine at this time. The trench warfare was becoming more deadly. Both sides had perfected the machine gun. Now, what had always held back the machine gun was by firing so many bullets per minute, the barrel got so hot, the barrel was going to bend. And of course, you don't want that in a machine gun. It was discovered that if you could put a water jacket around the barrel, this would allow the barrel to stay cool, assuming, of course, you could circulate the water. This here talks about some of the new techniques to fighting the war. The British had been the first to suggest that an armored vehicle could go over a trench. Now, the problem with an armored vehicle is it had to have treads. It couldn't have tires. And so the British decided to build an armored vehicle on treads. Now, it would have to be long enough that it could go over the trenches and then fire into the trenches. And the British began to refer to their armored vehicle as a tank. Now, the tanks that the British used could withstand rifle fire and withstand machine gun fire. However, they could not withstand a direct hit by artillery. The airplane. The airplane had been invented in the United States at the turn of the century. By 1915, all sides had the airplane. This young man here would like to talk about the tank. At first, planes were used simply for observation. The Germans will be the first to perfect a way in which a machine gun could fire and not hit the propellers. Now, of course, if you hit the propellers, that's going to break up the propellers and your airplane ain't going to fly very good. The British were forced to use machine guns mounted on the upper wing. Now, the problem with this is they are quite limited in how close you can get to the enemy. Now, soon fighters were shooting down observation planes. Other planes had bombs tied to the bottom of the wings, and the bombs were dropped on the enemy. Soon great battles were being fought in the air. But the Germans had a secret weapon called the Zeppelin. Now, the Zeppelin was a gas-filled bag that had a steel frame. Now, the Achilles heel of the Zeppelin was the gas. The only thing that the Germans could get a hold of was hydrogen. Hydrogen is extremely flammable. So the idea was that the Zeppelin would fly higher than planes. Then these Zeppelins would fly over Great Britain at night and drop their bombs. Here's a video that talks about the Zeppelins. Now, tomorrow we're going to look at some of the battles. Now, each of the battles that I have chosen is important for a particular reason. I don't think it's going to be easy to find all of the battles on the map because the battles are going to be within 150 miles of each other. So let's make sure on our map we know what those 3 X's are. Okay? A reminder to do your walkout worksheet.